Thank you very much indeed, Lily, for that very helpful and timely reminder about the opportunities and the benefits arising from the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. So let's reflect on some of those things, and let's try and ensure that the momentum which the Games generate helps to move this whole programme forward beyond summer of next year. Right, our final speaker this morning is Robin Gargrave, who's Director of Innovation and Development at Central YMCA. He's probably a figure who's familiar to many of you. He's got a long and distinguished track record in the area of physical activity, and he's going to talk to us this morning about physical activity intervention with hard-to-reach communities. So thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to try and get away with this, so I'm not standing behind something. Thank you very, very much for inviting me here today. It's great and great to hear what fantastic initiatives are going on in Brent, fitting with an actual national picture. Just picking up on what Rob said earlier about the new Chief Medical Officer guidelines for physical activity, even if you accumulate your 150 minutes a week, even if you're pretty fit and work out, sitting is bad for you, and there's a massive evidence for that. So just stand up, just for a second, please, because we've got to walk the talk in this room, have we not? Just give us a little bit of a shake, a little bit of a breathe, and then you get ready for my session. I'll try not to bore you. Right, sit down, that's your lot.
Thank you.
Okay, activating the hard to reach. Next slide. I'll have to wink at my friend here. Oh, we need a new slide. Okay. Just on hard to reach, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before, but a lot of people say there's no such thing as hard to reach individuals and communities. There's just inappropriate programs and messages which mean that we can't get through. And also on this slide, changing behaviour in terms of health behaviours, and this is a smoking behaviour, of course. Picture my son here, would you believe? Yes. It's really, really difficult, and it's the holy grail, isn't it? And we've had a lot of success with cigarette cessation over the years. It's dropped dramatically in this country, but legislation around labelling, legislation through hiking tax, and has been very, very effective. And we changed our behaviour in terms of wearing seatbelts. You remember Jimmy Savile? Clunk, click. A great public campaign, but also backed up by legislation. In terms of physical activity, we don't have that luxury, and we're really up against it. So let's move on and look at what's out there. This is some sporting, a very crude piece of market segmentation. This was done by Roger Draper quite a few years ago, but the picture still stands true. We've got about 20% of the population that are sporty types, and I suspect most people in this room fall into that category. We've done it all of our lives, and we'll probably do it, either sport or high levels of physical activity, until the day that we die. We're mad for it, aren't we? We love the pain, we love the sweat. We're the sort of people who would break into a gym when it was closed to have a workout. We'd climb over a barbed wire fence to have a kickabout on a five-a-side pitch. We can look after ourselves. You don't need to worry about these highly motivated individuals. About 16% of the population are what Roger called mild enthusiasts, and they're the people who go to the gym. Or anyone been to the gym on January the 1st, or 2nd actually now, because you can't go on January the 1st, and they're all in there and they're jumping around and pumping iron and going to the aerobics classes, and then you go back in April and there's no one there. They're mild enthusiasts. They drop in, they drop out, but they probably do enough overall to benefit their physical and emotional health, which leaves the rest. The winnable, the low-lying fruit, Roger referred to them as being on the subs bench. These are people who are prepared, although they do nothing, they are prepared to think about it. In terms of stages of change, they are contemplators. They know they should be doing more, but they're not doing enough. And in terms of physical activity interventions for public health, this is your low-lying fruit. These are the people that you should be targeting to try to persuade them to become a little more physically active. In terms of hard to reach, Roger very unkindly called them couch potatoes, a very pejorative term. We've heard about lazy borough today. But let's just remember that within this so-called hard to reach group, we have people, if I could have the next slide, who've got issues. It's not a question of them just being lazy and them not liking physical activity. This is where you find the greatest health inequalities, isn't it? And people from low social class, low income, low educational attainment, poor housing, BME, disability, drug use, cigarette use, high alcohol use. This is a difficult population to be accessing and working with. And in that context, I'm going to speak to you today about the YMCA Activator model, which has tried to address this and has got some evidence of efficacy. There's a cycle, isn't there? That people from this so-called hard-to-reach group are the least physically active, and so a cycle gets set up between disease, poverty and inactivity, which just feeds itself. If you're less active, your likelihood of becoming diseased, as Dr. Chowdhury pointed out, is greatly enhanced. And if you're ill, are you going to feel inclined to exercise? No, again, Dr. Chowdhury pointed out that's a significant barrier as well. So let's not underestimate the challenges of working with hard-to-reach populations. Thank you. How do we get people to change their behaviour? I wish I knew. It's hard, isn't it? It's really difficult. No matter how bad a place you're in, at least you have your comfort zone. And when you step outside of your comfort zone, we all know how that feels. Horrible. And unless you're supported in terms of changing that behaviour, you're going to jump back into that comfort zone very, very quickly. Okay? I lost my arse bit. Flip me back a second. All right, don't worry. We'll go with that one. All right. The other significant thing with physical activity as opposed to other health behaviours is that it's about taking something up, not giving something up. And a lot of the evidence that's been generated by scientists, behavioural scientists over the years, in terms of health behaviours, has been about giving stuff up, giving up smoking, giving up alcohol, giving up drugs, taking up. That's a totally different approach in terms of health behaviour. And I think it's something in terms of physical activity professionals that we need to take on board. It ain't the same as giving up. So, could people be persuaded to change? Well, we think yes, there's quite a lot of evidence, particularly enlarging on that stuff that Roger Draper did about the people on the subs bench, that absolutely there is. Half of adults agree they should do something more about their health. People know what they should be doing, they just don't do it. So we've got to find a key to turn them on to physical activity. Let's flip on to the next one because there's a lot of stuff to get through. Keep going. Okay, so what works? What are the interventions to get people more active? There's not a lot of stuff out there. In terms of peer-reviewed evidence, there is very little in terms of what works in terms of getting people to become more physically active and to sustain that, because all the benefits are fully reversible. There's not a lot of stuff. There is some stuff out there. We'll have the next bit. But there isn't a great deal, and which is why NICE have only been able to actually support very limited evidence for increasing physical activity. The research tends to be USA based. Get a bit ahead of yourself again, don't worry. I'll go with the next one. Let's go with the next one. But it does seem that community-based approaches, and I'm so delighted to hear today about the community-based approaches that are so prevalent in Brent and across the NHS piece as well, that these are most likely to be effective. So in 2005, almost £1 million Big Lottery Sport England grant was accessed by YMCA England and Central YMCA. It was a 3-year programme to widen access, promote health, increase participation in physical activity, targeting those least likely to engage, i.e. hard-to-reach communities. And in terms of trying to get that change in behaviour, we wanted to step out of the just sort of parachuting in track-suited physical activity experts or lycra-clad fitness instructors with bulging muscles and try to think about and look at the research. Who's the most likely person to be able to support behaviour change? And we thought it would be someone, not as an outside finger-wagging expert, but someone who's already embedded and trusted within the community. And so we came up with this concept of a community activator, rather than anyone who's got a massive amount of expertise. Let's just flick on. So what's a community activator? Well, in terms of personal qualities, we'll just drop the lot up there. Just keep them going. You'll see them as they come in. But within every community, you will find individuals, special individuals with these qualities. And if I just take the second one, someone who is socially effective, a sticky person we call them, and you meet them all the time. They come into the room and you're drawn towards them. You just want to be with them. And when they want you to do something, you stick with them. They're sticky people. And if you can get these people and identify these individuals with the community, we believe that with some additional training, they make very, very effective individuals who can support behaviour change to move people out of their comfort zone into becoming more physically active. So, next one. So we did the 3-year programme, and these are just some headline statistics. We trained 112 community activators in 54 YMCAs throughout England. They engaged people in programmes that, interestingly, they had a hand in developing themselves. So they weren't just given the programmes, particularly the young people that were involved in these programmes. And out of the 8,050 beneficiaries, a staggering 46% were previously completely inactive, hadn't done anything before. 80% were below the Sport England CMO guidelines of the 5 times 30 a week as it was then. 27% were from socially deprived communities. And in one of the programmes, which was a young people's programme called The Challenge, 56% were from socially deprived communities, and a lot of gang culture was involved in that as well. 14% were from BME backgrounds, which again is very, very high compared to standard interventions. The problem with that intervention is that it was a relatively short-term one, between 8 and 12 weeks. And so the evidence for long-term behaviour change simply wasn't there. But it was beguiling enough to give us some clues and to try out some different iterations. And so we tried some iterations in, if you just flick on. Sorry, I've jumped ahead of myself. So in terms of the training, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the training. It was a 4-day training programme that we gave those community activators. And as you can see, some of the key elements of that training, community engagement, actually being able to lead designated activity sessions like community walking, designated circuits, fun bits of dancing around to music, but culturally relevant music, communication skills, and understanding of the barriers and motivations to exercise. Rob was talking about some of those earlier, and it's really important to understand people's barriers and motivations and not treat everyone the same, and as well as promotion of health and physical activity skills as well. Okay, so despite that limited evidence base, to try it out in different ways has been very, very important. So we've tried the so-called Mentovator scheme. I was down in West Sussex about 2 months ago, training mental health professionals in a clinical setting to get the patients who are staggeringly inactive, with massive physical as well as mental health problems, to become more physically active. And we've had some success training mental health professionals to activate their patients. If you just flick on. This is an interesting one. Working with the Camden Healthy Living team, Camden installed across the borough 6 of these outdoor gyms. Have you seen these outdoor gyms? Have you got any in Brent? Yeah. Anyone? Yes? No? They're great. They're really, really good. In order to get people to use the gyms, we trained a cadre of local volunteers, just people off the estates. And there you can see John down the bottom. He was 77 years old. He was a fantastic community activator. And then Lily on the other side there, one of the brightest, bubbliest, stickiest people I've ever met in my life. Again, just a girl off the estate. Trained her up. And they encouraged use of the outdoor gyms on the estates over a 6-month period. There's a couple more stats there, please. So we trained 38 of these so-called PAPAs, physical activity peer activators, and they engaged 489 local residents attending supervised outdoor gym sessions, and a further 359 were actively engaged. They weren't there all the time, they just dropped in, dropped out, chatted to people, talked to them about the benefits of physical activity, and got them using the outdoor gyms. Another one. Just quickly, the Well London stuff, keep flicking through, that's fine. The Well London stuff, we were engaged as part of the Well London programme to head up Activate London. And Activate London targeted 20 high output communities, and we switched our approach from not just trusted people within the community, but actually people who are peers within the community, and trained up 38 of those. 31 of them qualified, and over the period of Well London, which was a 2-year programme, they engaged 7,827 individuals in longer term physical activity. So we're starting to see some of the long term benefits of the activator approach in terms of longer term behaviour change. Just very quickly, the next one, which is not about hard to reach at all, but we have got a good evidence base now in terms of workplace physical activity. A study was done, funded by the Department for Work and Pensions and the Department of Health, and I think Camden and Westminster, NHS, to engage people in the workforce to become more physically active. And this was a 12-month study done by the University of Westminster. And what we did was engage 17 small to medium enterprises. Within that workforce, trained about 2 activators per business. That should be 143, if not 43, 143 employees activated. And what we did was use Central YMCA Club up at Tottenham Court Road as a physical activity hub. And we gave everyone who participated in the scheme 12 weeks free membership. And they could come as often as they want or as little as they wanted. Often the activators would buddy them and bring them down. And interestingly, 25% of them then paid good hard money to join the club, which was incredible, which goes to show these kind of try before you buy things is also a very, very good approach if you can afford to do it. Well, in fact, the club manager said it's an investment. It's not a question of can we afford to do it, can we afford not to give them 3 months free membership. Okay. Over the 12 months, there was a 60% increase in physical activity levels. Reported well-being in academically validated questionnaires was increased. There were decreases in stress. There was an overall decrease in body mass index. All these measures were taken at baseline, 6 months and 12 months. And we had some great fun as well. We had a big yoga event in Leicester Square and badminton competitions and a pedometer challenge. There was also a pedometer challenge that involved them having to walk from London to Morocco, not literally. They just sort of did their pedometer thing and then stuck it on a map. It was all done with a nice bit of IT, but it was really a really successful piece of work. So, at the risk of being killed, let's move on a little bit. 4 minutes! Oh my God! Okay. The interpersonal approach is really, really important when you're working with hard to reach. Sorry, can you go back? And you know, empathetic skills, as we say, communication skills, welcoming. You know, you'll be surprised as you go around, particularly, you know, I go around the country a lot, and the lack of empathy and the lack of warmth and welcome that you often get in terms of the first impression of physical activity programs is quite scary. But some stuff, you know, the people who are engaging do need to have some knowledge, but they don't need tons of knowledge about anatomy and physiology and what muscles are where and what bones are there. They need to know more about the psychosocial model. The stuff that Robert was talking about earlier. What are the barriers to participation? How do you coach change? How do you support change? All of those kinds of things. Give people what they want. It's interesting. I've got a mate called Keith Smith, and he believes in making exercise and activity fun, and he will offer, as a personal trainer, refunds to anyone who didn't enjoy his session. And he makes a load of money. He's doing really well. Okay, I'll return to this theme later, but accessibility, and I think the fitness industry got something to blame here. Keep the exercise and activity accessible, keep it simple, keep the intensity moderate. People who are new to exercise don't like sweating, they don't like feeling their heart thumping in their chest, they don't like feeling aches and pains in their muscles the next day. God, we're doing it wrong, all right? It's got to be fun, it's got to be accessible. Let's flip on quickly. I've got 2. Okay. What have we learned from the programs that we run around the activator model? Well, some likely success strategies. Yes, certainly regular contact with an exercise specialist. It could be a personal trainer. It could be a Central YMCA activator. It could be It could be anyone, as long as they've got some kind of specialist knowledge. Don't use experts. Try to use as much as possible community role models, people who are peers, people who are trusted professionals. They need to have knowledge of the benefits. People need to know what's in it for them. So in terms of the short and chronic effects of exercise, that knowledge needs to be imparted. Use recognised behavioural and cognitive change approaches. That goes without saying. Motivational interviewing has been talked about. Trusted short interventions has been talked about. These are tried and trusted and evidence-based approaches. Let's use them. They're fantastic. Group sessions seem to work better than individual one-to-one sessions. The Welsh National Exercise Referral Scheme was based entirely on group sessions rather than one-to-one, and has been evaluated as a very successful intervention. And then community-based rather than facility-based programmes. You know, they say, "I'll build it and they will come." They will not. They might do if you reach out to them and if the programmes within there are relevant. So community-based rather than facility-based programmes. I think community first, facility second. Next one. Last one, promise. Okay. Other things that help. Calling people up, talking to them on the telephone is good, because everyone lapses, everyone drops out. Can we get them back in? Yes, we can. Make sure that the stuff that is on offer is culturally relevant. We talked today about Brent having the most diverse ethnic population in London. Let's make exercise culturally relevant, specifically targeted to those groups. There it is again, moderate intensity, enjoyable programs, low skill modality, and try to use a partnership approach. And I believe today is fantastic, and what a brilliant thing to do to get everyone together. And I hope from today these partnerships grow. I've reached my time. I'm very scared. If anyone wants a copy of this workplace study, they're very welcome. I brought a few along. I wish you great luck and success in Brent. If the turnout today is anything to go by, the only way is up, and good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, thanks very much, Rob, for that invigorating presentation, invigorating in every sense. Only had one very minor reservation, the suggestion about breaking into gyms. I have to say, as chair of Brent's Crime and Disorder Partnership, I'd just like to say that might be something that could cause us some problems, but everything else I think we'd all endorse wholeheartedly. Okay, thank you to all of the contributors this morning for being so succinct and keeping to time. I really, really appreciate that. We're now going to have a 15-minute comfort break. I'm going to invite you to come back promptly, and I do mean promptly, because if you arrive late from the break, then we finish late, and if we finish after 12 o'clock today, then I failed in my task of keeping this programme on schedule. Can I just remind you that we're going to break up into workshops after the break, and I think, as Sarah said early on, I hope I'm right in saying that workshops 1 and 4 remain here in the Wembley suite, and each of those will have their own designated facilitator, and workshops 2 and 3 are in the Ascot suite, which I'm guessing is just along the corridor. Anybody confirm that?
Yeah, that's
next
correct.
door. Okay, so the Ascot suite for workshops 2 and 3. Okay, comfort break, back promptly at 11:10. Thank you.